to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First thing we have on our agenda here is approval of minutes, public and non-public, for April 8th. I'll entertain a motion on those.
Make a motion to approve the public and non-public minutes from April 8th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, then, there we go. All right, on the public comment, public meeting minutes, any comments, questions, corrections on there?
Didn't see anything.
Matched my memory, so that was good. Anyone else?
Yep.
All right, non-public, all good? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, public and non-public, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. All right, next, public comment. Nothing at this time? All right, sounds good. We'll come back at the end. At this time in our agenda, now we have consideration of public comment. We added that now to our agenda. So, joining us tonight is New Hampshire School Board Association. Will, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Good evening. I'm Will Phillips. I'm the Staff Attorney and Policy Services Director at the School Boards Association. Thank you for inviting us tonight. Collectively, I showed up. But I got a couple of things I want to say. I will be squirming a little bit in my seat. I have a pinched nerve that reminds me frequently that I have a pinched nerve. But the presentation we do tonight, this is really our core training that number one, we use it for orientation for new board members, but it's also the one that we're most likely to present to boards in person. We also offer other in-district training, so if there's ever issues with meeting law or collective bargaining or something, we can come up and do those trainings as well. But you're going to get the speed version of this. I was told that you have a full board meeting after this, and I've got a hour and a half drive, so it works out pretty well if I zip through here. Unfortunately, I can't do it faster than an hour. I don't know, but because ideally it lends itself to the questions you have, both experienced members and new members. And I find that the questions and answers can be more valuable because they're getting to the pieces that are already of interest to you. So if you stop me because you have a question that you'd like to ask, I'm happy to answer them. And then when we push up to about an hour, I'll ask what you want me to do if we haven't made it through the slides. But for the most part, I'm going to give you the quick version. So. We start off with, I do want to point out the handouts. I'm not going to cover them at all, but I think it's important for you to familiarize yourself with them. The Right to Know Law Resources one, especially at the very beginning, offers you from start to finish how to get non-public sessions done correctly. And then there's also some useful additional information about Right to Know Law Resources. And then the second one that you have is a document called Resources for Boards and Board Members, Roles and Responsibilities. The only thing, again, I think familiarizing yourself with what's in there could be useful. Maybe the most important thing is number 2, which is a sort of a compilation of all the hiding spots for New Hampshire statutes that relate to school districts. Sometimes they're hard to find. Budget statutes are nowhere near. Annual meeting statutes or election statutes, and neither of those are close to education statutes. So it just gives you a nice summary or layout of where a lot of those chapters and statutes are. So we start with 3 core principles to sort of give the underpinning for what it is you got elected to do and what it is a school board is and what their duties are, as opposed to what the superintendent or SAU duties are. So you start off with this first core principle. Find this in a state statute, RSA 189 1-A. Purpose of school boards. It shall be the duty of the school board to provide at district expense elementary and secondary education to all pupils who reside in the district. A lot of words, and there's a lot of words that can be interpreted differently. But remember that that's why you're here, and that's the only reason school boards exist. If you didn't have that duty, you wouldn't need to have a school board. But you have multiple constituencies, you have multiple opinions on your school board, that's all fine. And when I say that, I mean even with respect to what that duty means up there on the top. What is secondary education? What does it mean? What does it look like? Means it looks like different things to different people. So you have the different understandings of how to best to accomplish that. So the next principle, collective authority of a school board. So this is a piece of information that comes as a big surprise to some people who are newly elected board members, and actually a big surprise to some who've been board members for years and years. But it's also something that the public is generally not aware of. When you're elected as a new school board member, you are only elected to do one thing, and that's to sit at board meetings, deliberate, and vote. And that's the thing that sets you apart from all the people who voted for you, and all the residents, and all the students, and so forth. You don't have any authority outside of what you have within a meeting. So as soon as the board meeting's over, you no longer have any individual authority. There are times when a board, second part of that is the board only operates as a majority body. So you have to have a quorum present and the majority of the quorum to make whatever decision it is you're making. There's a couple of instances where a greater than majority is required, but I think there's only two that I can think of off the top of my head. But the board can delegate some of its collective authority to individuals. The most obvious one is the chair. So you've elected from your board of equals one person to have some authority and some power that the rest of you don't have. Preside over a meeting, sign things on behalf of. Presiding over the meeting is really the most authoritative thing, because the rest of them tend to be more ministerial. Sign documents, act as a spokesperson, not a spokesperson for decisions to be made, except to the extent of the board is considering that, stay tuned, we're going to decide that at our next meeting or what have you. The board is aware of the investigation, and when it is time for us to deal with it, we'll handle it at that time. But not things, I'm the chair and therefore I say this and that's what the board's going to do. But the one piece that sort of crosses between ministerial and some authority is helping the superintendent set the agenda for your meetings. What that does, that sometimes causes a little, if not conflict, unsettledness within a school board, is it means that the chair is having communications with the superintendent that the rest of you are not privy to. And the principal reason for that is, subject to the right to know law, if you had to have a discussion amongst all of you about what to meet about, that would actually be a meeting. So you'd have to have a meeting to have a discussion about what, have a meeting, what you're going to decide at the next meeting or talk about at the next meeting. So it gets a little awkward. But it also includes those kinds of conversations where superintendent reaches out to chair, maybe something's happening, maybe superintendent is not 100% confident in the direction superintendent wants to go. And what that would mean is chair is either saying, no, you're good, just come report to us next week at our meeting, or is saying, no, we need to have a special meeting to have that, to give you that authority. But almost, probably 90% or more of those, probably 95% or more, they're going to be the first of those. They're going to be, no, just, give the board the heads up about, what the issue is, and just announce that, we'll be addressing it at the board meeting. So, third core principle, the difference between governance and management. So, when, there's two sort of domains within operating a school district. There's the management side, which is the SAU, school administrative unit. That's what they're doing, administering. And then there's the governance side, and that's the school board side. So a little saying that, we think helps draw, that line, at least in your head. It's a gray line sometimes. It's not the board's job to run the schools, but it's the board's job to see that they are run well. So what does the board do? The board sets policies, vision, goals of the district and helps fulfill them. Primarily, your function as a school board is a legislative function. That is, you're making the policies and policy decisions that govern your district, so the local law. Of course, it's subject to state and federal law, and some other authorities. But every other decision you make, or almost virtually all of the decisions you're making, are within the legislative function. Approving field trips, deciding what your budget looks like. Those are all legislative decisions. However, you've got a couple of functions that fall within an executive function. Primarily, that's pulling the trigger on teacher hires, or you're the body that makes the final hire in that instance, and then some other places as well. And finally, the third area where you have some functions, some duties, are quasi-judicial. So that's when you're giving a hearing that's relative to a particular individual's rights. So not like a public hearing on unanticipated revenue or something, but a hearing on the non-renewal of a teacher or something like that. Superintendent's side complements that, both in the, implements the policies, visions, and goals of the board. So that's your first bullet up there. Manages all of the operations of the districts and its schools, and then advises the board regarding legal obligations, practical considerations, policy, budget, and so forth. So the superintendent's function is somewhat dual. On the first hand, it's managing and doing, implementing the policies, visions of the goals of the board, subject to all the statutes and regulations and so forth, but at the same time has the responsibility, and you find this both in Department of Education rules and various statutes, has the responsibility and the duty to keep you informed as to what it is you're supposed to be informed about. So legal obligations and so forth. Just a little bit more about the difference and the relationship of the two domains. Superintendent services, there are 2 statutes and a couple of Department of Education regulations that require you to have a qualified person to provide superintendent services. Currently, what that means is for the vast majority of districts, all districts over 450 students, they have to have somebody with a superintendent credential overseeing the administration of the district. Doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an employee of the district. Some small districts, they either contract with another SAU to provide services, or they might have, just an independent consultant providing services. But you do need that superintendent certification overseeing all of the other folks who are administering your district. So that's 194C4 and those 2 Department of Education regulations. If you look at them, and they're actually printed in full in the roles and responsibilities resources thing, you'll see that anything that looks like management is assigned to the superintendent. That is, carrying out, executing the things that they're required to do. So whether it's school board policies or state and federal statutes or things perhaps that are in the individual contract. But both, all those sources, they lay out, the various functions. 30201 specifically designates the superintendent as the executive officer, that is the person who executes those items that they're required to. So all of the administrative and leadership services of the district, but then there's a provision that specifically says, as those services are further defined and directed by the governing bodies. So that's the school board. And then, of course, the statutes and rules. So here's an executive function, and this is the biggest executive function, and it's the one that is how you best carry out that red line from the previous slide about how does the school board see that this school district is run well. Well, it does that through, number one, hiring a good superintendent, and then number two, evaluating the superintendent. Both of those things are required under either statute or Department of Education regulation. So under 194C, it's the school board or an SAU board in the multi-district. And I know you're a cooperative, but you only have one district in the SAU, correct? Okay. So that's lucky for you. Because, you know, it's complex enough to have a cooperative. But when you're in a multi-district SAU, each school board is independently evaluating the superintendent, just as within your within your district, each school board member is. So there are some SAUs that have 40 school board members.
That's like Keene, right? Yeah.
Keene has 7. Keene has 7, and then then there's a couple like yours, which are large cooperatives with just one. So Conval is probably it has the most towns, I think. How many towns do you have?
Just 5.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like
Conval,
small potatoes.
9.
9, yeah, no.
But then you've got some cooperatives, many cooperatives that are only 2, and then you have many cooperatives that are they're 2, but they're only, say, grades 8 through 12. And then the same towns that feed the cooperative have their own individual K through 7 or K through 8 SAUs. Some of which have their own superintendents, some don't. Okay, and then the next component of your oversight, major component, comes through constant communication, annual evaluation. So evaluation, you evaluate the superintendent every time you have an interaction with the superintendent. Every time there's a meeting, every time you need a report, every time you look at a report. All of those things are constantly evaluated. So I think the rule says evaluate, but all it says is you're required to do the evaluation annually. Neither the hiring statute nor the rules relating to evaluation tell you how that needs to be done. And so thinking about the hiring process, that looks very different, not only generally district to district, but also very specifically to the time that it occurs. You know, did your superintendent pass away unexpectedly in the middle of the year? Did your superintendent serve for 10 years and give you a 2-year notice that they were retiring? Those two hiring processes are going to look very different. And then same thing with the evaluation. There's nothing that, it doesn't tell you anything other than except as decided by the school board. So the school board figures out how the school board is going to evaluate. So we've got some ideas. And you know, if you hear our executive director, Barrett, he'll say, and we've never found a good one. Well, we don't have a good, there's no, here's what you should do in your district. Because even within the same district, it's going to change. It's going to change even with the same superintendent. So year 1 of a brand new superintendent is going to look very different than year 10. Year 1 of a new superintendent to you is going to look very different than year 5 or than it did for the superintendent the year before. So those things have to be adjusted every year to make them most useful to you. So we have a good idea as to how you should do it, and we've got some models. You know, if you're ever in need of some ideas, we've got some ideas. But here's the overlaying thing. We think all evaluations, whether you're talking about the superintendent or the teacher evaluations, what have you, you set your goals, develop your instrument, know what the instrument's going to look like and what the process is going to look like. But at the beginning of the year, set the goals. The goals for the superintendent should be the same as or based on the goals one step earlier. The board identifies district and board goals. So you have district goals, whether it's a strategic plan, short-term goals, short-term objectives, you've got those goals. Then you've got the board's goals. How does the board help achieve the things that are in the district goals? And then you've got the superintendent's goals. And the superintendent's goals should also be based on those, as well as, past performance. Are the things that, maybe need to be tweaked? Maybe the board, as currently constituted, has different expectations than the board did as previously constituted. So you set those goals, you have periodic reviews and updates. 2, 3, 4. Actually, one good thing about Keene is that they actually have a schedule, because it's so complicated, in their policy manual attached to their superintendent evaluation policy. They have a regulation or a procedural document that has this, wonderful schedule. So you go through that portion, you get to the end of the year, superintendent does the self-evaluation, the board and the board members complete theirs. You have your sit down, and guess what happens next? The board then identifies the next year's district and board goals. And you start that process all over again. And that's the best way to keep your administration and your governing body pointing in the same direction. If you need little corrections, great. Maybe things are going so well you don't need new corrections, you just need new goals. Maybe we should shoot higher because we're already outpacing where we thought we would be. Then lastly, I'm not going to cover this, it's actually within that packet as well, but it does a good job just sort of side by side pointing, how governance and management relate in various functions. Many of these are going to have, let's say, movable lines. That's where policy, remember that provision in there? As those services are further defined by board policy or whatever it was, by the governing body. That's where some policies can push it this way, some policies, things are going well, we can move those over here, those lines, one way or the other. But, so for instance, policy and decision making. It's the board that develops and adopts the policies. Obviously you rely on an HSBA and probably other sources, but you also going to the superintendent side. So the superintendent must implement, monitor legal requirements, and then recommends needs and changes, usually based on new legal requirements, or because they've been monitoring how the policies that are in place are working and fit current practice, or maybe they need to be changed. Things that were realistic 20 years ago aren't realistic now. And I'm not going to go through the rest of them, but it's just an example of how you've got that board makes the decision, superintendent implements the decision, superintendent then provides information back to the board so the board can make new decisions. Some school board legislative functions. So these are main buckets. These are not the little tiny things that you're required to do. We don't have time to do that. Another list in here is a list of all, most of the very specific duties that you have under state law, like, provide a meal, provide transportation, those are all in there. But all of those, or most of those, are going to be done through legislative decisions. So what do we have? We have policy, and you'll hear, maybe you'll hear, but it's common to hear that policy is the primary function of school boards. That's the legislative function. That's making the decisions for the district, and then also charting the course for the district. So those are policy decisions. Express the guidelines and philosophical statements, which chart the district's course of action. Policies are the means by which you advise students, families, staff, the larger community of the requirements, expectations, opportunities, procedures, etc. And those may be requirements or expectations, etc., that you've established under board policy, or that are just part of the legal framework that applies to school districts. How would students and families or employees know about certain expectations and requirements unless you told them? And one of the ways to do that is through permanent policies that people can access and find out what they need to find out. But they also create the framework within which the superintendent manages the district and the staff discharge their assigned duties. That's sort of parallel to that last one. Then I want to talk about the big P and the little p. For years and years, if you heard policy, especially if you heard somebody from NHSBA say policy, the only thing you thought of were those things with codes that, I don't know if you still get printed books. I don't see anybody with a printed book.
Digital now, but yeah.
I was at a district last week. It was the first district I've seen maybe in 5 years where every board member had the policy. And they had other things in there as well, copies of the collective bargaining agreement, copies of last year's budget, so some good things in there, but they had the full manual. Anyway, that's what we all thought about policies were, but policies also are all the decisions that you make. It's a policy decision to decide that in the middle of the year when the roof fell in on the athletic barn, that you need to use money to pay for that, and you need to take that money from somewhere else. Well, where do you take that money from? That's a policy decision. You're making a decision for the board. So you've got the coded policies, those are your big P. Those are your permanent laws that are applying more generally, not just to very specific but reoccurring instances. You guys actually had I'll get to that. You had a funny one. I'm going to get to it next slide. But then you also have those single decisions or series of decisions that school boards are entrusted with and fall within their duties. Okay, so for the new board members especially, but also for anybody who ever has to use our policies, we have 3 classifications. So there are 12 different subject matter. That's that first letter. So A is general, B is board, C is administration. But then we have 3 classifications as whether they're required, recommended, or optional. The first ones, the required policies, all that means is that somewhere in one of or some of the statutes or regulations that are referred to in that policy or in the footnotes to that policy, there is language that says the local board shall adopt a policy. So there's a statute or a regulation or combination of them. So Title IX, for instance, there's one regulation, and then the state also has a regulation applying to the same thing. So those are required by law, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything in the policy is required by law. Sometimes we're putting they just give us a little tidbit. So what we're giving you is a sample. We're not giving you, you have to do this. Let me just say, the federal policies tend to have far more requirements than the state policies. And then the state policies, they're more and more requiring certain content. But some of them are still as simple as the local board shall adopt a policy regarding homework, and the policy shall describe how homework shall be accessed and assessed. That gives you a huge spectrum, especially in a K through 12. You might have, a different set of rules for a K through second grade, and then a different, so you can have different rules in different places. You can have something as simple, and I think ours does this, and it's based on the old language of the rule. I just gave you the new language. Old language of the rule, our policy simply said the principal and or the classroom instructors will, have to, establish the homework policy for that room, but the homework policy needs to describe how it relates to the grading system. So in high school, it might say this is 20% of your grade. If you're late, you get a 0 or what have you. But it's up to the instructor rather than, the school board deciding for a K through 12, what each set of homework should look like. So the recommended policies, they're as important, I think, as the required policies, but they're recommended rather than required because instead of the statute or regulation that is associated with it, instead of it saying the local board shall adopt a policy, the local district shall have a policy, it says something like the LEA should do, students shall not do, staff shall not do, staff shall do, so it'll have that type of language, but it doesn't specifically require a policy. But that's where, you as the board are making rules. And if the statute or regulation has specific things you're supposed to do or not do, or different constituencies are supposed to do or not do, how do they know? How do you know what the legislature told you 5 years ago, what to do this, it's hard to keep track of those things. And so when you look at that list and you see that education-related statutes are in 30 different chapters in the RSAs, that's just state law. That's not even state regulations. That's not federal law, not federal regulations. So the recommended policies are often just compiling legal requirements. But again, they provide more content than just the requirements. There is in some places, so for instance, take the general anti-discrimination policies. I think there's probably 25 different statutes or regulations that are referenced or that are connected to that policy. So what we're doing is trying to put them all together and give the administration or the students or whomever a way to follow from A to Z what applies in the different situations or in that specific situation. If you want, because they're both based on legal requirements, when you as a board or your policy committee is looking at them and trying to figure out what's best for your community, what fits your voters, your voters' expectations, your employee expectations, etc., and you think that the sample that we gave you has language that maybe you're not comfortable with, just make sure that you've gone through the process of checking what the legal requirement is. Because there may be stuff in there where we just put something because it's the only way we could figure out how to make it work. And either you can vet it by looking at the statutes yourself. You can give me a call. Actually, I had 2 today about, hey, do we really need to do this? I can say you don't really need to do this, but here's why we did that. And that sounds like a good idea. So.
And is that communication funneled through you, or is it funneled through our chair? Like, how is that happen?
It can be different ways. Number one, it's subject to your own board direction. Generally speaking, if it's if somebody calls me with a generic question about is this legally required, I would probably answer that question. If it's how do we do this, I might answer that. What I can't do is I can't be your attorney. I can't be the board's attorney.
Right.
And I definitely can't be an individual member's attorney. If the question at all smacks of there's some internal conflict going, you need to remember that it's the board that is our member. And our first interest is to help the board maneuver a situation. So if you call me with hey, I think somebody did a bad thing, it might be that I end up having to talk to the chair simply because it's the board that needs to be corrected. So it's up to your board to say, no, nobody can contact, NHSBA. But if nobody tells us that, and somebody calls me with a generic question, I'm most likely going to answer it. The other thing about recommended policies, they often are operational best practices. So we have a public complaint policy, which is not specifically required, but how else would the public or families be able to bring things forward? What was I going to say? Oh, and then we've got the optional policies. No policy required. They're really just districts might want to have this at student parking. Is it recommended or is it optional? I can't remember, but you're not required to have one, and there's no laws about what would apply. But sometimes they're just requested by member districts, and we get a couple of them. And if it seems like this might turn into something, we'll create a policy specific to that. So your district reached out to me just last month with a question about snowmobile parking or snowmobile policies. And that was fun because I belong to 2 different national education policy writers groups, and I put that out there, and I got a couple, but yours was actually more developed than any of the samples that I got from anybody else. So good for you.
So we're gonna work on that this summer, actually, because it hasn't been updated in 20 years.
Yeah, the interesting part about that is it was written by a previous school board member who was a lawyer.
Yep.
So that's what you were probably.
It certainly was well organized and fairly well thought out, and I think so. none of the policies that I got from the other states were, I thought, as well developed. But there was one of my colleagues from Wisconsin who said that there were some districts up north that all sort of got together and they did something, but the policies were not really something they could share. But he did say, here's the things that they wanted to address, so I gave that to your chair, and I guess that's what you'll be working on. But anyway, so that's an operational policy. I doubt I'm going to put that in, but if somebody calls me, I know where to look.
That's right. That's right.
But key takeaway with our samples is that's what they are. They're samples. They're templates. They're starting points. They're modifiable to fit your resources, your building structure. The same policy you get is for the K through 4 with 30 students, and it's the same one that Manchester gets. So policy, we're still on legislative decisions: set an established budget and provide budget oversight. So think about what your budget is. It's a series of decisions that you have to make about what resources to propose to the public to spend their money on. Question: do you have an official budget committee?
Yeah.
Okay. So your responsibilities are the same. The only thing that changes is the version that the voters get first stab at. So you get your warrant article, and that has a budget attached to it. That's all that is, though. It's a proposed budget. So let me go through. So your legislative body, your voters in your district, ultimately approve the budget, but laws and regulations require the board to propose an operating budget, and that's true even when you have a cooperative budget committee. Let's see, I don't want to hit that just yet. Big thing about the preparing the budget and doing the same work that you would do, even if it was your proposed budget that the voters first saw, is number one, it helps help the budget committee understand what you believe is required. But then it also, if in the unfortunate event you and the budget committee can't come to agreement, if it's a significant issue, it allows you to present to the voters at your annual meeting what why it is you think this extra $150,000 is important. People have been clamoring for a Spanish teacher in middle school, and in order to make that happen, you have to come up with the 150, so you could have one, not the other, and they can either amend the budget or not. But you, as the board, being in possession of the same information you would have if it was your budget, is the way to advocate for that that extra money if you think it's important enough. Once you pass the budget, where does the oversight come in? And this is more in part the executive evaluation process. First one is manifest review. How do you do your manifest? Do you do it whole board, or do you have a subcommittee?
We have a subcommittee of finance and facilities that does the manifest, so we go into the SAU and sign off on those.
Yep. So this is actually one place where statutes specifically allow delegation of final, what would otherwise be a board decision to a subgroup. Most of the time, your committees are only going to be making recommendations to you, but this is one where, nope, you guys don't even need to look at it. 2 people can just, I don't know how many board members are.
Yeah,
So two members can sign off on it. The way the language works, it's in, oddly enough, a statute called treasurer's duties, but it's basically the treasurer shall pay upon the approval of the school board or 2 or more members so authorized by the board. So that's where and the 2 members don't even have to be there at the same time. It's not a meeting. The next item, next place where the school board has back up to the policy. Remember I said policies can shift where things go? If a school board decided that they wanted everybody to do manifest review, then the school board could do that. That's something within their power. They either assign it or they don't assign it, or perhaps they, make we allow it, but it's got to happen this way, and that, so they set a process as well. So the next item, line item transfers. And again, this is one where policy can shift where certain authority lies or doesn't lie. So when, the example I gave with the athletic roof, let's say that the money had to come from the instructional line, and the roof was going to cost $150,000, and guess what? $150,000 was put in the budget for hiring the Spanish teacher. Well, the board can decide that, well, we can't get that $150 somewhere else, so we're going to take it from here and we're going to put it over there. That's moving it from one line on your DRA appropriation to another line. That requires the school board to approve it. But by policy, you can decide to shift some lines, for instance. So our sample policy, DBJ, says that if the transfer is less than $5,000, and that is a number that has not changed for over 12 years, maybe even closer to 2008. So if it's under 5,000, the superintendent can approve that. Just needs to report it to the board at the next meeting. But if it's over $5,000, then the transfer can't occur until the board approves it, because the board might say, no, we really want the Spanish teacher. We're going to do something else. And where that policy decision comes in, you can move that $5,000 either way. There are some, because we haven't changed it in so long, there are districts that have it as high as 50. There are a couple of districts that have it lower than 5. I mean, they have a total annual budget of $8 million, so they didn't think they needed more than 5. So that's another place where you can require more or less supervision. And then lastly, and this is true, not just with budgets, but student performance assessment, employee evaluation schedule, just getting more information about the data that you need in order to inform your larger discussion. So you're not, by the way, when I said evaluations, you're not looking at the evaluations, but you want to know that they're being done. How many are being done? How many employees are on improvement plans? That kind of raw data is certainly something that falls within information you should have. Strategic planning. So this is another, forward-looking decision making process. You've got a Department of Education rule poses upon boards a duty to develop long-range plans and identify measurable and attainable short-term objectives. And this one pretty much speaks for itself. But again, a long-term plan. It's not a concrete form that once you start down this road, that's where you need to end up. But without the plan, you don't even know what road you're going down. At some point, at any time you're forced with a decision, there's a reason you're forced with that, facing that decision. And what the strategic planning does is helps you, create here's our objective, and what are the most efficient and cost-effective ways of getting from here to here. And for some things, planning them out, multiple years is the only way to really achieve them. Skip through that. I just want to check my time here. Okay. Communication. So this one is the least specific to statutes or regulations that assign duties to the school board or to the administration. But it probably is as important, if not more important, than anything else. And some of you may have even run, saying that school board needs to be more transparent and so forth. Unfortunately, sometimes you find out, even if that was your plan, your platform, you find out that because of the right to know law and because of various other issues, there's certainly limitations on how much communication you can deliver. But, obviously it's necessary for student achievement, administrative success, just information to the community, which is district and board credibility, and then also crisis management. You do have multiple legal requirements regarding communications. So you have to do an annual report. You have to have a family engagement policy. You've got various policies that require you to do annual notices, your FERPA notice, your pupil rights notice. And then in 91A obviously requires multiple meeting notices, minutes, and a few other items. But this last one, I should start with the bottom there, sample policy EG. One thing that we really started to push, started right before COVID, but definitely as COVID was progressing and later, is that having a comprehensive plan that addresses how various things, how you're going to handle different types of communications. You've got various school groups. You've got school groups who have students in the building, so they get the auto notices when there's a snow day kind of thing. You've got people in the public who rely on the piece of paper that still hangs up outside the SAU office, or many of them still get most of their information from newspapers. So you've got to think about those different constituencies and how you can keep those folks informed. Do you have a big signboard that announces meetings and so forth? Who speaks on behalf of the district? That almost always is administration, and you may have particular employees that have specific tasks for that. Who speaks for the board? Again, to the extent there is a board spokesperson, it's majority expression, and/or it's simply highlighting things that are coming up in the future, or if you need to find what the budget is, you can find it on the website, blankety blank. Who's responsible for communication in a crisis? Probably should not be the person who's handling the crisis, because if they're handling the crisis and talking to the press at the same time, maybe their attention is better spent on the crisis part. But what kind of resources do you need for that? So you have a YouTube channel. Do you have? Sometimes it depends on what kind of cell service or internet service a district has, that they might have to add another kind of resources, because not all areas of your district have those resources. So just thinking about those things and having it as an ongoing discussion. So the way that the sample policy EG, it doesn't tell you how you're going to do any of that. It just says, hey, we need to think about this. Hey, we need to think about this. And then it also requires you to look at it every 2 years. Because certainly the communication policy we have today, when did you last change your snowmobile policy?
20 years ago or so.
Yeah, so probably would look a little different today, right? Board combined function. So we talked a lot about legislative function. That really is your primary function. But you've got a couple of executive ones. We talked about one, the hiring and the evaluation of the superintendent. That's an executive function. But the hiring of certified personnel, and let me just warn you that there's weird language so if you look at the education rule, and then you look at the hiring rule, and you look at the renewal rule or a statute, and you'll see that they use different language in each one, and that just creates a mess that we're not going to cover tonight. So, but the most important one is hiring of certified personnel. It always is going to include teachers. Almost always, if not always, is going to include your principals, your assistant principals, your media specialists, librarians, and your guidance counselors, now known as school counselors. All of those folks are going to be certified personnel. And then the question is whether some of your other certified personnel fall within this as well, and that might be very specific to the person we're talking about. It does not cover, in this context, paraprofessionals who have certifications. So the certified is going to refer to required by the Department of Education to have a certification, and then generally the Supreme Court at least says and is involved in teaching. So you've got to look at the different positions that may or may not cross these lines. But in general, teachers and those other few folks that I mentioned. Under Department of Education 30301, so that is a Department of Education rule titled Substantive Duties of School Boards. So substantive duties of school boards, and when you look at the personnel duty, It's adopt policies necessary and desirable for the, employment of your employees, staffing your certified personnel. Actually, all personnel. But then you've got another one that is, and a statute, that in order to hire a certified personnel, the superintendent has to nominate that person, and then the school board has to elect that person. And it's both are required. So if the superintendent doesn't nominate somebody, the school board can't hire that person for a certified position. That's the same for a renewal. So if the superintendent, I don't know how many employees you have, but if you have 150 teachers and there's 149 on the list, that 50th one is not going to be reelected. If it's a tenured person, then the person is not reelected. And then if the person's not reelected, that person, if they're tenured, has the right to request a hearing. That's a non-renewal hearing. But if the person is less than 5 years or more of experience, then that person has no ability to request a hearing. But anyway, so you've got the board policies regarding the recruitment of certified personnel. What does that look like? Do you have do you prioritize academic preparation, higher degrees? Do you prioritize brand new teachers because you want them to learn the Muskoma way? Do you prioritize advertising broadly? You want to bring in people from maybe outside of New Hampshire. So you can have advertising recruitment type policies. You can have prioritization of who it is you want to be hiring policies. You could have policies about timing of how recruitment works and so forth. But once you've done all that, superintendent nominates certified personnel, and then the board in its executive function elects or doesn't elect those folks. For all the other employees, for the non-certified personnel, so those people who are they're not required to have a certification to be employed in that position, and or they're not involved in teaching. They don't fall within the certified personnel category. Board policies, so it's the same rule, board policies regarding recruitment, hiring, and so forth. And then this is where the board decision comes in. So this is another policy decision for a board. Does the board want to be involved in hiring the part-time custodian who comes in on Saturday to clean up after the rec basketball game? Maybe. Does the board want to be involved in student services director? Probably. So those answers might change. So either you stay on the red track and it's only a legislative function, so you adopt policies and the superintendent is responsible for hiring the people. Or you have some policies that do this, some policies that do that, depending on where the position is. You might have collective bargaining agreements that affect some of this. Board policies can establish the same process for teachers. So the little tiny districts, you can be sure that the school board is involved with hiring that part-time custodian. Manchester, probably not. And then another crossover where you have multiple functions, also in the employment area. And this piece right here is similar to what it would look like for students, but we're just focusing on the recitation to the rules that relate to personnel. So personnel policies, again, the same one, adopt policies relative to the recruitment, hiring, and employment of employees of the district. So policies, that's your legislative function. Then the administrative function, when you look at the corollary to the board rule, so 302.02 is the substantive duties of superintendents. And for, that list, also included in there, the superintendent shall direct and supervise the work of all employees and shall have such power to make that authority effective. So that's pretty strong language. And what that does is it reflects the basic framework that you have one employee that you direct, and that's the superintendent. And then the superintendent directs all of the other employees, and that language is right there in the regulation. So that includes the BA, that includes the custodian who comes in on Saturday. Might not be direct supervision, but she's responsible for it. And then, should things go awry, as they do from time to time, the board serves as a hearing body for dismissals, renewals, step 3 in your grievance process, probably it might be called level 3, or something like that. And again, as I mentioned, the same thing applies for students, and we'll look at another slide in a little bit. Collective bargaining is also a crossover function. As a governing body, when you do a collective bargaining agreement, you're the ones negotiating the contract. But again, those are policy decisions when you finally get to that final point. And they are, remember that little blurb from very early on, they set the parameters by which the superintendent manages the district and the employees carry out their functions. Well, the collective bargaining agreement quite frequently is going to have multiple places that are directing the superintendent and the employees one way or the other. One of the most important takeaways, we don't spend a lot of time on this because, I'm over, no I'm not. Okay, I still have 10 minutes. How many unions do you have?
What?
How many?
Normally we have 7.
What?
How many board members?
No unions.
Oh, unions. Oh, we have the support staff, and then we have the teachers.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Just those.
Yeah, so one poor district has 5.
Oh, no.
So it's your job to negotiate the contract. You do that through a negotiating team. Most districts, almost all districts, have at least one board member on that team. It's not required, but that's the way it's typically done. But there's a couple of things that are different about collective bargaining and how they impact an individual that I want to just call to the board's attention. So you'll often hear, probably, that you don't lose your rights to speak as an individual when you're a board member. There are a couple of places where that's not true. Did you learn confidential information in the performance of your official function? So discussions in non-public session, for instance. Or, in this particular one, when you are on a negotiating team, so what did you have 7 members?
On the board, yeah, and then we have
Okay.
2 of us are on the negotiating
Right,
team. Yeah.
so you have 7 members on the board, 2 of whom are on the negotiating team. Those 2 negotiate the contract, they reach a tentative agreement, they bring it to the board for ratification. They have an obligation, well, the district has an obligation to have them affirmatively support and vote for the contract. So when it comes to the annual meeting and somebody says, why the heck are you supporting this? You can't answer, well, I don't really, I just wanted to get through with it because I was getting tired of negotiations. I mean, you basically have to support, even if you had a good reason. If you signed on to that tentative agreement, and you have to in order for there to be one, you have to support it.
Is that for the person who's the negotiating team member?
That's what I was about to say.
Okay.
So that's only the 2 members.
Okay.
So the 2 members, they come back to the board and the board rejects the ratification 2-5.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
Or the board supports the contract 4-3, and you get to the annual meeting and somebody asks why did you vote no? He can tell you why he voted no, hopefully. But the other thing that the rest of the board needs to be aware of is that be careful when you pick your negotiating teams. If you have a board that is, you know what your board's like, and the board, either wants a contract or, is in favor of pushing it this way or, is opposed to doing anything other than what you're already doing. If you appoint the person who needs to support whatever you came out of, I'm sorry. Just be mindful of who you're appointing, because if you appoint somebody who's not of like mind, that person can actually veto the rest of the board. And there's one district a couple of years ago, just 2 years ago, spent over $60,000 in just their attorney fighting over the issue because the union claimed that they argued in bad faith because they went on for months and months. They thought they had, anyway, so it got complicated. So just be mindful of that issue. That's the only thing you need to take away for that. So the last area where you have specific functions is as a quasi-judicial body. So that's when you are sitting as a hearing body over somebody's specific interest, whether it's their job, whether it's a family requesting a manifest educational hardship placement, some things you might have adopted by policy, student expulsions, for employees dismissals, non-renewals, labor grievances, but other you might have places where you have allowed for an appeal to the board by policy. When you're doing that, you are acting, you're the judge and the jury. You're responsible for providing the people involved in that due process. And you think about due process, and it depends on what the interest is at stake, where you see more or less process. So if you're charged with a felony, you're going to get a jury trial. If you're charged with a traffic violation, you're just going to get a hearing before a judge that lasts 15 minutes. So that the amount of process changes depending. However, in all instances, we expect a couple of things. One is that the person who's making the decisions or deciding which facts are correct or which facts are not, who's lying, who's not, that they're fair and impartial, and that we, as the person whose interest is at stake, has the ability to hear and challenge whatever the information is that's being used. And again, it's going to depend very greatly, significantly, on what is the particular question, because so when you look at Department of Education rules on procedures at board hearings, there's one that is just general, and you have to have notice, you have to allow people to talk, you have to keep an adequate record, you have to give them a written decision. It's very short, but if it's a non-renewal of a tenured teacher, that those processes look a lot more like a trial, not a jury trial, but they look a lot like a trial. Same thing for a student who's being expelled. Very different than the due process that applies when you're suspending them for one day. So it all depends on what the interest is. But this idea of you being the impartial decider of things, that's the thing that leads you to be this way. So it underscores the need for you to remain separated from things that are being investigated, problems that are happening. Doesn't mean you have to be completely oblivious. Obviously, you can't be. School board members aren't known for not knowing anything about what's going on in their schools. It would be impossible. But when somebody calls you with a complaint, what do you need to know? You need enough information to be able to refer that to the superintendent. That's it. Now, second thing, because they're calling you for help. And as an individual, you can't solve the problem. You can do two things. You can make sure that the person who needs, whose responsibility it is to address the problem is at least informed of it. But you can also give them the roadmap give the person who's calling the roadmap to what is the process that I need to employ. Now this one says KEB, and I meant to change it. Our main policy that I would suggest that you need to know is AC. So it's a big policy in that it's the general anti-discrimination policy. But it also has a sort of, if your complaint is about sexual harassment, go to this policy. If your complaint is simply the teacher is being really mean, then you go to KEB. If it's a race issue, you go to this policy. If it's a bullying complaint, then you go to JICK. So AC, so know two things. Familiarize yourself with the policies that are listed in AC. There's just this one section, reports about discrimination go to your discrimination officer, but all these other reports go to these other people. Familiarize yourself with that, but also familiarize yourself with how to tell somebody who just approached you in the produce aisle on Saturday where to find that policy. If you go to the website, actually know what to tell them. Most of them, I always say, type so Muskoma, you don't have a lot of Muskomas in the world. So Muskoma NH school policy, And you'll probably find it. But test that out and make sure and be able to explain that to somebody. And if they don't have the internet, they can get it from the SAU, they can get it from any of the individual schools. Or you can provide them that thing. But what you don't need in that conversation is, so it's something that happened in class between two students and you're upset that the other student still is in the building for whatever reason. You don't need to know, well, have they had problems before? Who saw it? Any of those. That's investigation. You don't need that information. You just need to know when, what class, and that's probably, and the name of the person. So you're not required to remain in the dark. Information on a need-to-know basis. The superintendent, it's okay for the superintendent to even tell you, thank you for referring that to me. I just want to let you know that, I talked to the principal talked to the person, and it's being handled. That's okay. And it's also okay if you told the person, let me know in a week if you don't hear from anybody. And then if they call you back, then you can call the superintendent and say, hey, they never heard from anybody. That's okay too, and it's also okay for the superintendent to, in a board meeting, go into when you're in non-public. Hey, I just want to let you know about, this thing that happened. Just to let you know, person's out of the building, we're investigating it, and we'll bring it forward if we need to, that type of thing. Okay, and then the last thing that this is the shortest I will ever talk about the right to know law, but it's important for new board members to know this. So just some basic terminology. All meetings are open and public in that they're required to be open to the public. A non-public session is always a part of a public meeting. So it's always after the beginning of the meeting and before the end of the meeting. The only reasons you could be in non-public, they're in 91A3 paragraph 2, which is page 1, or the first substantive page of that handout. And that's the only reason you can be a non-public, those 13 things in there. And if it's not in there, you can't be a non-public. There's another thing called a non-meeting, which looks just like a meeting, except the statute says meeting shall not include, and then gives 3 things that don't fall within the definition of a meeting, even though they look like a meeting. So the most common are consultation with legal counsel, collective bargaining or strategy discussions among the whole board about negotiations. And then the last one is chance or social encounter. So if the whole board goes to the retirement of the town librarian, that's okay. If you just happen to all bump into each other at the t-ball game, that's okay. Just don't talk about school board business. And then meeting. So here's where, big thing. Meeting, I call it the duck taste, because if you have these 3 indicia and they're present in the conversation you're having, then that is a meeting, and you should comply, you must comply with all of the technical requirements of a meeting. So, for instance, a public location, 24 hours notice, adequate minutes, and all the other things that you have with meetings. So the 3 indicia: quorum of a public body, that's easy, 4 of a board, but what about your committee? If you got 5 people on the committee, then it's only 3. And you're convened in any manner in which the participating members are able to communicate contemporaneously. That includes all digital communication. Emails always are going to meet that standard. So emailing to a quorum of a board implicates that standard. A quorum of the board commenting on a Facebook post would be contemporaneous communication. Whether you saw it or not doesn't matter. It's whether you're able to communicate contemporaneously. For the purpose of discussing or acting upon something over which the public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power, often we call it jurisdictional or official matters. So if you as a school board member are communicating in a way that you can communicate with a quorum of the board, and you're communicating about something within school board business, then, or official matters, you are having a meeting, and all of those technical requirements that apply to meetings should have applied. And if they didn't, and you didn't follow them, so for instance, the Facebook comments, obviously you didn't give notice, you're not taking minutes, the public is not at a physical location, the quorum is not at a physical location. So all those things apply. So you have to be careful about those communications when they hit all three of these. There's also another provision that I don't have a slide for, but basically says any other kind of communication that's intended to circumvent the rules, that's also a violation. So I might only send, I send the email to the chair, I call the vice chair, and then I go and I walk up and I tell another board member. So now I've got 4 because I've got myself, and I just talked to 3 more about the same thing. And I only did it that way so nobody could say, yeah, but I wasn't convened in a manner that we could all communicate contemporaneously. I purposely did it that way, so that would be a violation as well. And that's it.
Cool.
Can I ask why it's the duck test?
It looks
I
like a duck.
think-
Oh, it
looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Okay, all right.
There's also a 4th one,
I was
feathers.
stumped on that.
There's also feathers, which is public body, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't want to ruffle the feathers, that's good. Yeah. Cool.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just ask a quick question? So let's say we have a teacher who's not being renewed, who is tenured. I've taught in this district for 34 years. I know a lot of people. Would it be best for me to excuse myself from a hearing because, I know that person really well, and even though I don't feel I am biased, others
yeah.
might assume that I
That's a good
am?
question.
So it is not a legal disqualification, and there is no, so the decision to recuse is always personal until, of course, you stay on and you were supposed to leave, then it becomes an issue for a judge or an arbitrator to decide. If you only know the person because you taught in the building, and you taught and they were there for 15 years with you, but you weren't close friends, you weren't related, you weren't their supervisor, and even if you were, it gets less and less. The more evidence that would suggest to somebody that you were not being impartial, that's where it becomes problematic.
So if it was, I taught English, so if it was one of the other English teachers, it might be considered.
And it's a personal thing.
Yeah, it's a personal
If you feel
thing.
uncomfortable
If-
with it, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, like that's a sign.
I tried
Yeah.
really hard to get out of jury duty a year and a half ago. I tried as hard as I could, but the judge kept going back to, but can you be impartial? Well, yeah, but, but I had given each side reason to, do we like them or do we not like them? I don't know. So that's a personal decision for you. I honestly told the judge, yeah, I can be impartial. But if it was your spouse, definitely out. If it was your child, definitely out. But some conflicts, which are legislative conflicts, are different. So what if I run on a platform of, I don't think we should have hardcover books ever again, we just need everything online? That was my platform. So now we've got a policy decision to make on that very issue. Can I vote? Yes, of course I can vote, because that's what I ran on. If, however, I was I was hoping to get the software contract for, doing that, that would be a conflict. Anyway, so different types of conflicts. In the end, it's yours. If you choose wrong and you shouldn't have been on the board, and it's a hearing, then, you run the risk of having it overturned. But if you got to that point, the person to talk to would be the attorney for the board. And you can give us a call too, and I'll give you the general answer.
Cool. Any other questions or comments?
And I'm here as, if you want to shoot questions at me for 45 minutes, I'll do that.
Cool, all right. Well, thank you very much, Will,
Yes,
for
thank you.
coming in.
Helpful.
Thank you.
I mean, Kathleen and I have been on for a long time, but I learned new stuff with this. I don't know about you. I always get good stuff out of this.
Yeah, and so thank you for asking us to come. This is actually the best part there.
Get out of the office.
This is the best part, yeah, it gets you out of, no, but, we have 168 school boards. I do maybe 30 to 40 in-person training. So think about all the board members I never get to meet.
Mm.
And so, this is really our biggest opportunity to come and see where you are and what your district looks like and meet the people that are our members. So my contact information is on the back. As long as you don't call and say that Tim is, it's the interboard squabbles where they're unfortunate because we're trying to be helpful, and being helpful can actually be helpful to the board. But at some point, I think we just wrote last week, the first time in my 7+ years there where we told the board, look, you need to designate just one person to talk to us. Because we've had the same conversation with 4 different people.
I was going to ask, and I think to your question, Joe, earlier, I think usually I just ask Amanda. I'm like, do you think we should ask NHSBA about this? And then she'll make the call and reach out to them. But just basically for their own sake, that we're not all bombarding them with questions.
Well, yeah, that was kind of like, is there like already something that we have a chance
That's
to
pretty
go
much.
down?
Yeah, that's pretty much our.
So just the bombarding, that's also a plus in my day. Not,
Good to know.
yeah.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
you are excited about that snowmobile policy. So
You've got a couple of colleagues who
no doubt.
they know.
Oh,
I
Martha
don't-
loves you. Yep.
I don't.
I'll call Bill.
I think Lois Costa is probably my
Oh.
one fan right now.
Oh, okay. Now we've got me beat.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Cool.
Good night.
Thank you. Any public comment at this time?
No thanks.
All right. Get it there. All right. Lily, did you get all that? Lily, thank you so much for being our student rep. And go ahead. You are next on the agenda. So we have your written report here, but go ahead.
Alright, so I started with sports. Baseball and softball had their first games last Friday against Munisquam. Unfortunately, they both lost. Baseball's is pretty close. They were like 8-3. Yesterday they lost 8-7 in extra innings to Fall Mountain. That one was really close. They're getting there. JV had a game today. I don't know if they're still playing. They might be against Fall Mountain. Softball. I believe softball and baseball both have more games this week. Track had a meet today, and Gunnar Courier ran the Boston Marathon yesterday as the youngest runner in the race, and he completed
Excellent.
26.2 mile run in 3 hours and 3 minutes.
That was nice that they put him on the sign. I will say that was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clubs. Art Club was meeting today at 3 to celebrate Earth Day. And both them and the Art Club, the Writers Club too, they're working together again to write the Royal Review. And they're accepting submissions until April 25th. Robotics Club is ranked somewhere in the top 12 of the world. They received, that's what Ms. Garner told me. They received the Creativity Award, and they've received an award at every event they participated in this year.
Do we know how many, top 12 in the world? That's pretty impressive, but do we know how many there are in the world?
I'm unaware. I just want to be the one to talk to.
I don't know.
Interact is doing a lot right now. They have the Rise Against Hunger meal package project with both the Linden and Windsor in Martin Rotary clubs this Friday during school. It's like an in-house field trip to pack those food packs.
Oh, nice. I'm glad you guys are doing that again.
Saturday, they're doing the annual spring cleanup with the Canadian Conservation Committee, but they might move it to a different date depending on the weather. And they're looking at their annual reserve auction in May, so they can replenish their treasury for future service projects. They just don't know the exact date, but it should be the week of Mother's Day. DI, they present a murder on the grill on May 10th.
It's like a murder mystery dinner.
I think so.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds really cool.
Yes.
NHS is planning the next faculty breakfast. The music department. Chorus and band just came back from a very fun trip to Nashville right before break, which was great. Visited many museums, the Belmead Mansion, Grand Ole Opry, among other things. So lots of learning opportunities. Among participating in the World Tribe Heritage Festival, our band placed third and took home silver. I believe choir also got silver, but I'm not, yeah.
Yes.
It was a great opportunity. It was really fun. Jazz band is still meeting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 to 7:45 in the morning. Lots of fun. Student council just held a spring fling fun day the day before, the Friday right before break. Lots of games and stuff. And they're planning currently a day to get off campus so that they can discuss lots of stuff for next year. As a little getaway of planning. The freshmen, they were planning a spring semi-formal dance, which is supposed to be next weekend, but the Iris musical is that weekend, so they're moving it to a new Saturday in the near future. They're just unaware which day, and we're discussing that on Friday. And they're considering participating in the citywide canning garage sale fundraiser. They're talking about it. Juniors are planning prom. They're currently selling tickets. The prom is May 17th at Reagan Mountain. Seniors planning the senior trip and other important graduation events as the end of the year nears. Other school news, we just came back from April break, starting the 4th and final quarter of the year. Seniors are working on their scholarships and choosing their schools. The art department is proud to have 3 talented students, Angel Hawkshurst, Silas Chakowski, and Brandon, that have submitted artwork to a art competition that is also known as the Artistic Discovery Contest. There's a lot of information of it right here. So that's really cool. And finally, the middle school musical is The Little Mermaid. They perform for the elementary schools on May 1st, and then their shows are May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Right.
7, 7, and 2.
Cool. Thank you, Lily. Any questions for Lily? Anything going on in school?
So juniors plan the prom for seniors? Got it.
Busy. It's a busy time of year, for sure. And so if you need, and I know if you need to go, let us know, but we can get through the rest of this stuff. So. All right. Next thing on our agenda, finance facilities meeting date in May. We were not able to have a meeting in April due to lack of quorum and just timing wise. But this was just to establish that we're going to do it on the
Yes.
first Wednesday in May.
I thought a Tuesday
Tuesday.
worked for Brewster.
Okay, then. We'll stick with
I
Tuesday.
said, yeah,
Okay.
because we're currently on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So he had requested a switch.
Yeah, that should be fine. Diane, that's okay. First Tuesday, and it's at 1 o'clock at the SAU. So we'll do that next week. Next on our agenda, superintendent's report. Amanda.
So you do have my written report in your packet. A lot of it Lily also went over. But on Thursday, April 3rd, Martha McDonald and Ryan Linrow and I, we attended the job fair at Plymouth State University. Very well attended. We gathered a lot of resumes, kids coming with resumes. A lot of elementary ed kids, a lot of PE/health certs
Good.
for kids, so pretty exciting. And we hope to interview, I think Ryan has an interview with one of those kids
All
coming
right.
up for the 6th grade position that we have open. So that's pretty exciting. Also, if you are looking for a copy of what Will did, we did not just blank copy them because
Yes,
this
it's a lot of paper.
presentation, it would have been a lot of paper. So I did one copy here. If you'd like a copy, let me know. We can also print one off for you. I should give you a quick legal update. The tax cap bill did not pass. It was actually added to the state budget. It did not pass though. And
It didn't pass in the state budget?
did not,
Okay.
No, yeah, I got it.
Excellent.
which was, I'm very thankful for, but still mindful that we need to make sure that our budget comes in fairly level, honoring that the people in this district are concerned about
Yeah.
tax rates. And the school choice has not been voted on yet, but it is deemed as ought to pass. That could have an implication here, as we do have some parents that work in Lebanon. It's dependent on transportation, right? We do not to provide transportation to out of district.
By school choice, you mean different than a voucher bill. School choice, you mean, can you explain this? Because this is a new
Sure.
bill this
Yes.
year.
And it would mean that kids could choose which school they would like to go to.
In the whole state.
In the whole state.
Okay.
And as long as there is capacity in the receiving school, we would be, or the sending school would be responsible for paying 80% of their tuition. So it could have a significant impact on us. I'm hoping that, people are proud of Mascoma schools. Mascoma schools, we've done a lot of good things. We are pretty good at showcasing those. We're not great at showcasing those yet. But we need to really be making sure that the public understands that we do great things here. I know we do great things with our sports teams, right? To bring home, what do I have? 4 banners, 5 banners, bass fishing champions, football state champions, soccer runner-up, cross-country boys team champions. To put 4 banners on a wall in one season is remarkable. So I need people to understand that our sports teams are thriving. I need people to understand that our audiovisual club is thriving. Our theater group has this awesome facility. We put on 2 musicals. Our music department and theater departments are doing nothing but growing. Our AP test scores have dramatically increased, and I expect to see a gigantic jump in the ranking for this high school when it comes out in USA Today next year. Tina is very proud of what she has been doing here at the school as far as the instructional practices, and that being demonstrated on our school testing. So we're really showing that our kids are getting good instruction by proving that on those tests. So we're really working hard. Our intervention blocks, as you can see by the increased scores at Enfield Elementary or Enfield Village School, right, to rank in the upper 25th percentile is amazing. And, we're really working on improving the scores for Indian River School and improving the Canaan Elementary School scores too. And that will come because our intervention blocks are strong. But Mascoma schools are solid and they are strong, and we offer a lot of opportunities to our kids. And we want our kids to be in this community and be a good part of it. So we will continue to promote what we do, and we will continue to make sure that our kids in this community get an outstanding education. So that's my soapbox, and I'm stepping off it now.
Well, I just want to also add on top of that, is that our kids get into just as good colleges as any other school in the state. And my kid, my daughter is now at Tufts, and the kid sitting next to her went to Phillips Exeter. So
Awesome.
There you go.
And, I just want to add that we have a former Mascoma graduate who will be teaching at Dartmouth College this year, so coming year. So, we have kids that go on and do great. Amazing.
And Lily's just telling me that who has been accepted? Braylon Stone will be going to Dartmouth this year.
No kidding. All right. Good job, Brandon.
I mean, we are preparing kids well. We need to be better about telling our story.
Yeah, I think at least every year a kid gets into an Ivy
I think
from our graduating class.
And they're well prepared, because as a dad, would you say that we have been prepared?
Yeah, she's been pretty well prepared. I mean, the biggest culture shock is going to a city. That's
Yes.
about it. And for that, we just took her down a little early. And,
Yes. Yeah.
But
So academically, I do believe our kids are prepared for whatever path they choose after here. So thank you, and I appreciate your support. And a lot of this would not be possible if you all were not so pro-education. So a lot of good things working here for this district. So once again, I'll back off.
I dragged you back up, so thank you.
I have a question
yeah.
about school funding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we were the receiving school district and there was someone applying for here,
Yeah.
what's the process? Does it come to the board for approval?
I'm not sure what that really means yet, because we do have our tuition waiver policy or the tuition for
But that's
staff.
different.
Yeah.
But that could now change,
question.
right? So that could be, a moot point at this,
If I remember from reading legislation, is that we as a district need to figure out what that tuition rate would be.
Yes.
And please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
And then from there, that would be the rate that we would set for anybody who comes to Mascoma. That's my understanding.
Yeah, we have a rate set now.
Yeah, Michelle will probably bring that.
Yeah,
in.
whatever. But
We
then
should
we would
look
have
at
a
it again,
policy.
Could we
for
add that
waiver.
on the next agenda for
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah.
Typically, I think right now we're at 3% over the state number,
Average.
which the state average,
Yeah.
which I think is
For
a
tuition.
wise place to be.
Yeah. So if someone from Lebanon wants to send their kid here, they pay 103% of the state average.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
So, but it would mean that instead of charging the employees the tuition,
Yeah.
right, we would now be charging back to the sending district.
Right.
So, you know, if we had a kid from Newport that lives in Newport but was attending here, the parents had been paying, but then the, you know, financial portion would fall back onto
80% of it would fall to Newport,
84.
and then the other 20 would be, yeah.
Yeah.
And if that was a staff member, then maybe we eat that 20%. Like, yeah. Until it's signed and done, like, I
Yeah.
have no idea what this is
Yeah.
going to go to, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Amanda? All right. Next, we have Business Administrator's Report. You have Michelle's written report in your packet, but go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so right now we're working on the updating the CIP. Again, I'm going to bring it to the next Facilities and Finance meeting the first week of May. So Matt's been getting me some updated quotes for a lot of the projects we're going to be working on this summer that come out of the CIP. So this year's projects, we have the high school soundboard that Seth has been working on, installing a new digital sign at the high school entrance, upgrading the field hockey field, and completing the phase 3 of the skylight replacement, which has already been completed. So those will all come out to the tune of about $260,000. Sorry. I've got the special education budget balance is currently at around $294,000. The general education budget is about the 1.1, which equals a total budget balance remaining of the 1.4. We are currently working on a list for the year-end projects again, and I'll have those for the next board meeting for the encumbrances. So in your packets tonight, I do want to mention that we have the van bid for a third van. That will be part of the year-end encumbrances, but we want to approve it tonight because the order banks for 2025 vehicles will close the first week of May. So we want to get that order in, so it'll be here hopefully before school starts.
Which year? Cool. All right. Any questions for Michelle?
What's our percentage of expenditures so far this year?
I can get you that, but I don't have that right this
Okay,
second.
that's fine.
I'll get you that though.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have bus routes update. Is there any updates from Butler?
I do not have any
All
updates or
right.
changes.
And then school board photo we'll table till next time. All right, new business. I do recall at a previous board meeting we talked about nameplates for the board. In your packet is some proposals here for some very nice nameplates. Amanda, did you want to talk about these or?
I just think it lends a more professional touch. I mean, I do love our little paper nameplates, but I think it is time. There's not been a school that I visited that doesn't have these professionally done nameplates with the bars. You'll see that the quote that you have here, there's a startup cost.
Yeah.
There's a startup cost. But after that, it's just simply changing out the person's name.
Because we're buying the whole stand and everything,
You're
and
buying
the title
a stand,
and
you're buying three triple decker ones that say, so it would have a name, what town you're representing, and then chair, vice chair, secretary, etc. The others will just have two slots, so they'll just say a name and then the town that's being represented. So you can sort of see, it's best if you're looking at these to look at the very last or second to last page. That's a nice representation of how they look. They're slightly bigger than the ones that you have before you, so I think they're 2 by 10 for the name each section. So, or 3 by 10, 369. Just the first ones would be really tall. But there is a startup cost. After that, you'll just see that there's $28 to swap out somebody's name tag. So,
okay.
board members change out. My other question is, seeing this, would you also want to provide them for the budget committee?
I don't think we need them for the budget committee. I think the budget committee would say no to that as well, seeing as how they said no to increasing their stipend this year.
Yep.
So I don't think they would need them necessarily. So, cool. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Entertain a motion so that we can discuss. So, I'll make a motion that we approve the school nameplate order as presented.
I'll
I'll second.
All right, so we're open for discussion. Anyone like to have comments? Do you have any thoughts?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. I mean, at first I was like, oh, that's pricey. But then once you told me that when we do get a new board member, it'll just be $28 to swap out the name.
That's right.
Then these things will last for hopefully decades. So, cool.
You be okay lugging all that weight around?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, but thank you, Kathleen. You know,
That's
they're
good
going to
add.
live
That's a
in-
great
Another-
question. What? Oh,
Another
man.
carrier.
You know, they're going to live here.
Okay.
They're going to live here
We'll
in
get
the
like
library.
a crate and we'll put them in the library.
Yeah,
or
they're going
something.
to live here in the
Perfect.
library.
That's a good idea.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah, and I agree. Other places I've seen them in.
You're not going to move to finance committee meeting?
That's right. We'll have to let them all down.
We're all meeting here.
Clang. But yeah, you're right. I've seen everywhere else I've seen. They have, nice looking ones. We have a nice building here and we have a nice library.
You're going to have finance here in the library? No.
Dan's teasing me.
All right. Any further discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor of approving the, sorry, I had one last question. This is coming from our school board line item, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, all those in favor of approving the school board nameplates as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions. All right, now on to some fun stuff, which is approving parties, approving some celebrations and such. So you are looking for the staff retirement celebration on June 2nd. What are you looking for that?
Approval for the awards that we hand out
Oh,
to
yes.
teachers.
All right,
And that would be an amount up to $1,000.
up to $1,000, okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of staff recognition up to the amount of $1,000 for the staff retirement celebration on June 2nd.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion on that.
Is this what's outlined in the CBA? As in for
It is
retirement
not,
gifts?
it's just something that we do out of the
Okay.
kindness of our hearts.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a little thank you gift, but like this CBA has like those like the retirement like years of service awards.
Yeah.
Like they have those in there.
Okay, so this is more of just, it doesn't matter your time within the district, this is just simply a parting gift.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
The parting gift is perfectly.
All right. Anything else on that? All right. All those in favor of approving the up to $1,000 worth for staff recognition on June 2nd at the celebration, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. All right. Next up is a May early release refreshments, and that is that for the teachers, I presume?
That is for the teachers and any
Staff.
support staff that would choose to attend. I neglected to ask, usually on the March day, I ask if you all will provide a lunch. We did not ask for that, so we're hoping that you will provide some refreshments.
Okay. Up to what? How much were you?
I'd say up to $500.
$500? Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve up to $500 for staff and faculty refreshments on the May early release date, up to $500.
I'll second that.
All right, discussion on that.
Is that for all staff,
All.
not just at one school?
All staff.
Because it's going to be a PD, Professional Development Day, here? Or it's going to be at each building
At
you'll
each
have?
building, and I think someone suggested an ice cream bar and said he would scoop.
Oh, that was me, yes. I said, what about a night? Because you said we missed the lunch, and I said, why don't we give them ice cream in May? And I said, if we get
So
this,
if
maybe
anyone
I'll
else would
scoop.
like to scoop?
Anyone else want to scoop?
When is
Let me
it,
know.
what's
We've got
the
4
date, May
schools.
what?
May early release. Hold on, let me look.
Well, I'll see if I can make it, maybe I will.
Oh no. I'm logged out. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll email
All
you.
right. Yeah, that'd be good.
I get logged.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
And so for all of your professional development days, you've had to ask for this in some
Yes.
form?
Yeah.
I'm just, for the record, want to be able to, maybe we should discuss as a board whether making this something that we should do every year instead of asking for each individual one. I think like maybe having a line item in the budget or something that might look like that, so that we can have like, you can just simply provide it when you know that the teachers are going to know that there's going to be something there.
Yeah.
I think that would be something worth discussing when we get into next year's budget.
Because a lot of these come out of the school board line, right?
It's correct.
So so there's a spot for it. It's just kind of releasing the funds for it. But yeah, that would be handy to do it all at once
Yeah.
under one separate
Mhm.
thing. That would be good. I like that.
May 21st.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, I can scoop, just remind me.
Okay, good.
All right. Anything else on that one for the May early release refreshments? All right. All those in favor of approving May early release refreshments for faculty and staff up to $500 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. And then up next, you have something that already occurred, but this is kind of what prompted, reminded Amanda that we forgot lunch in March. But PSAT, SAT student breakfast. A number of years ago, we had talked about providing breakfast for kids before they take the SATs, because we know that when kids have a full stomach, they do better on tests. And so when federal meals were free, we were giving out free breakfasts every day, and on SAT day, we made sure every kid got breakfast. Since free federal meals went away, we have not provided free breakfast at SAT day, I found out for the last few years. And so I asked, and I said, is that something we can provide? Amanda was able to get Anton to throw something together, and they did. And now I'm coming to you retroactively asking if you authorize the school board to provide student breakfast for the kids on SAT day. So how much, what was it up to, how much?
$400.
$400. So I'm asking I'll make a motion to approve up to $400 for SAT student breakfast.
I'll second that.
Okay. So, for discussion. Any discussion or questions on my end? Again, that would be something we could put in that, because I like the idea of having that. The kids are like full stomach, and it levels the playing field. And I had just kind of thought that was still happening because we did all the free meals. And then Amanda said, no, we haven't been doing that. And we got to give them some breakfast. I don't know how many of them took up on it, but let's see.
I think quite a few. I think it was well received.
Good. All right, any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? All right, class size projections. So you have in your packet, you have CES. Washington did a nice color-coded, I like that. And then you have EVS projections. You have projections for the middle school. And then you have, at the high school, they broke it out as to how many kids each teacher has in how many sections. I found this one to be really illuminating. I liked this list a lot. So, yeah. So I'll entertain a motion to approve. You need approval on that, yeah? I'll entertain a motion to approve class size projections.
I'll entertain a motion to discuss class size projections.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. All right. Anyone? Amanda, did you want to speak to any of these off the top?
So just as always, this is preliminary work. There will be some shifting, there will be some adjusting, but it's the time of year where I ask the teachers to really start to look at their current resources, how many kids they have. Both schools, both elementary schools have what I like to consider a floating teacher, and I leave that assignment of that person up to the building principal. Some building principals like to have fairly smaller kindergarten classes, and then have a little bit of a heftier first grade or second grade. So they might put that first grade, that extra floating teacher. So we have 2 at each grade level, and then 1 extra floating teacher. And they might take that floating teacher and put them into kindergarten. Megan Prince and I had some good discussions. She's got some weird wonky numbers, and we decided that a split level class would probably be best. So she'll have a combination, what is it, a K1?
Yeah.
Yep, and she had one of her teachers that was very interested in doing that, had approached her and said, I'd really like to give this a try. It's a really nice opportunity, a split class, split grade level. It's a really nice opportunity, not only for the kids, because sometimes they get to loop with the teacher for a second year, but also for the teachers to kind of make a change without really making too much of a change, right? Like they might feel like they're a little stagnant and they want to try something different, so that's pretty good. And it looks like, I might have misspoken a little bit, it looks like Megan's, no, I'm correct, so 2.5 and 2.5 is 3, Amanda. So it looks like she's got 2 like sort of floating teachers. Her second grade is fairly large, so. But yeah, so that's what we kind of tend to do. I've asked Tina to really pay attention to the number of students that she will be placing in classes. We really don't want to run classes that are too small, because that's not beneficial. right? That's just not enough to have robust classroom discussion or projects and things like that. So she's really working on that piece. We're also starting to see the average class sizes have, pulled away from that 90 to 100. The last large class is our 8th grade, and they'll be moving into the high school. After that, we will be looking at classes that run, 75 to 85, so somewhere in there, and that runs pretty consistently through the entire district.
Do
So,
we have any projections coming up about what enrollment is like?
oh yes,
And
we
then
do.
better.
The NESDEC does a projected enrollment for us and just shows the trend. And they actually have our projected enrollment lower every year a little bit, which is just odd to me, but I can have Martha share that out with you
Great.
and Diane, because you would not have received it. It came at an earlier board meeting. But we have that. They do birth rates. They account for all of that. I look at
I'd
trends
love to
for
see that.
kindergarten. Yeah, we'll send that over to you. But I like to look at the kindergarten trends, and my kindergartens have run between 35 and 40 consistently now for years, which is good. A decade ago, I always like to say, when I was at Canaan Elementary, we were over 300. And now I think we run
220? 215?
a little more than that, 250-ish. So not 100 down, but,
That's up, because a few years ago, it was not that.
I'd have to look at my numbers, I could be a little bit off. But, yeah, so we do have that projected enrollment from NESDEC that we can ship to you guys in email. So, we want to make sure that we're being mindful of that. I don't want classes that are too small, I don't want classes that are too large. There are parameters, in board policy that talk about what we aim for class size. But that is an aim for, right? It doesn't mean you can't have 12 or 25 in the class if need be. So that's where we are with that. We are looking at sections of, as enrollment has decreased, we are looking at, we have also decreased staff, right? Because I don't need, when I was at Canaan, we had 3 sections for every grade level, and we've been able, because enrollment has dropped, to drop that number. So we want to be mindful of that, and we have followed that all the way through, those proportional numbers all the way through the middle school. And the high school will be next, right? We'll be looking at class sections, and do we need to have 5 people teaching math or 4 people teaching math? Can we get to 3 people teaching math and utilize VLAX or other advanced courses? Or do we have so many advanced courses that we do need to keep those, but also then make sure that our numbers are a little bit higher in some of our other classes to free up that teacher. So she's a shuffling all the time. We adjust
That's right.
and we adapt as we move on.
So I don't understand, help me to.
It took me a while to figure
Yeah.
this out, too.
So I'm looking at Damien May's classes.
Yep.
And English Lit, and I don't understand the 9 and then the parentheses 50 and then 3, I get the 3 sections, but I don't know what's going on here.
So English Lit and Comp, it's English Lit and Comp 9 is the name of the class.
Yeah.
So it's for grade 9, and it's 50 kids.
Okay, that's
split
the
up-
grade level.
Yeah, that makes it more
Yes.
complicated, yeah.
So there are 50 students total and then these 3 sections, right?
Yes.
And then it jumps down to heroes and villains. Is this a breakout from the English
No,
Lit
that's
or
a different,
addition?
each one of these are
Okay.
different classes, yeah.
So there's 31 and then there's only one,
One section, so that means 31 kids in that one class?
Yep.
Yeah,
so
Why is
that's
that so
a
high?
large.
that's a large class.
Skip Chalker also has.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
There could be another section that's
Oh, there
is
is
one
up there.
in here.
only teaching that
Skip.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Chalkers, yeah.
Oh, so the sections are split between Chalker and May?
Are they like
Yeah.
different
Okay.
semesters? Or-
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you'll see that Heroes and Villains has a total of 31, also in Skip Chalkers, they're not 60
Yeah.
kids that teach it. So that's just the total number of kids in that, but really there's 2 sections taught by 2 different teachers.
So 2 different classes
2 different classes of those 31.
of those 31 kids, yeah.
So 31 kids split to 2 classes.
Okay,
And then there's
Yeah.
Thank you.
46 with
Yeah, I sat there and stared at that for like 5 minutes. Like reading workshop 10, 1, what is, yeah, so.
yeah, I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Amanda on these, on class size projections? I looked through it, like the high school thing was very illuminating. It helped a lot once I cracked that code. It was really the only ones that had really low numbers were highly specialized classes for kids that I'm imagining are very driven and very like career oriented, like they know exactly what they want. Or it might be something like a music or something like that, where you just have different things. But they did a nice job of like really kind of streamlining what's in there and stuff. So cool.
And teachers there's been no issues with like caseload or equity within like distribution among teachers?
For the special ed population?
No, I meant like just total amount of students throughout classes, like not one teacher doesn't have 70 kids and another one has like 102.
Tina does a pretty good job. That sometimes in the past has happened.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when I taught ninth grade, I sometimes had way more than
Right.
So it has
everybody
happened.
else because,
Ninth grade is usually.
But Tina's pretty mindful of that. So what she really tried to do, especially for math, is because sometimes you could have someone teaching calculus, right, AP Calc, and they might only have 7 kids, but the person that's teaching Algebra 1A has, 30, 60, 90 each time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
she tried to spread that out so that one year you might have a heavy load like Diane was talking about, but the next year you might get to teach calculus.
Right.
That is the price you pay, though. You're teaching calculus,
Yeah.
so.
This
But
is the price.
All right, any further questions on those? All right, all those in favor of approving the class size projections as presented, signify by saying aye.
I,
All right, all those opposed? Abstentions. All right, up next on our agenda is the general assurances. This is our general assurances for federal or for state law that we need, and federal law, that we need to participate in programs. This is what we do every year for, at this time, coming up on the next school year. Anything in particular, Amanda?
Yes, I'm going to ask that you table this at this
Sure.
time, and I would like the board to take some time. It is not due for a bit. I would ask that you take some time and you read through this document very carefully, and especially as it pertains to material that is now embedded in here that might pertain to DEI organizations, which we do not have any clubs, policies, etc. labeled DEI. I would ask that you also read through carefully as it pertains to transgender students. I would also ask that you read carefully as it pertains to any students, any gay students. So please take some time, read through this document, and I think we should have further discussion at a different meeting regarding the district's desire to sign or not sign. I will also make sure that you are kept apprised of any information that I may get. Right now I have limited information on this, other than I need you all to read this very, very carefully.
Cool. All right, then I will table that, and we'll move on. Thank you for those.
When is this document due?
I believe not until June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aren't there legal cases scheduled to be heard on this?
I'm not sure exactly on this one. I know the recent one, the other Title VI paperwork that I did sign and turn in is pending a lawsuit on the 24th. I believe the decision is for that. But this, if it's not, it will be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But they won't get through court before we review it then.
Yeah, I mean, if we table it again, we table it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
that's right. Cool. Good to know. Yeah, any other questions on that? And feel free to call Amanda and
Yep.
talk about that.
and when I have more information, I will let you all know.
Now for some fun stuff. Lily, do you want to tell us about your class trip? Do you know about it? Do you know anything about it? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you are a senior. It is a senior class trip.
I wasn't here for the last meeting because I was in Nashville for the last meeting, and I think they finalized it.
Oh, okay. I'm
So
sorry. I
don't
wanted to
think
give you
they
the thing. All right. So, Amanda, it is for the senior class trip to Lake George, New York.
New York, that is an error on
Error on the agenda is Lake George, New York. Anything specifically that you want to tell us about it? Anything you know? Just to prove.
The kids are pretty excited for it.
Okay. All right. That's
Took a lot of deliberation. A lot of talking. Took a lot of talking.
Six
There's a lot of
Flags.
different ideas.
Where are you going?
I know that.
All right, good deal. Okay, then I'll make a motion that we approve the senior class trip to Six Flags Great Escape in Lake George, New York.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion on that? Do you know a price of what that will be? Or
I believe it's covered by.
it's covered by your senior dues,
It's
right?
all covered by senior dues.
Yeah,
Or senior
We have enough
fundraising and such?
the fundraising.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
senior
sure that was
account.
on the record, that it was
Yeah.
covered, and every student should go to this because
Correct.
it's your last chance to go have fun with your classmates,
Mhm.
and you will have a good time. That's the other part of my motion, is that you will have a good time.
It's not an overnight, is it?
No,
It
it's
is
not.
not.
No,
It's a
okay.
day
It's a
trip.
long day,
It's a long day.
Long day. Get here at 6 a.m. probably?
probably.
Probably. Because it's like about a 2.5 hour ride at least to get there, so.
At least.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor of approving the senior class trip to Six Flags Great Escape in Lake George, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All right. Up next, as Michelle alluded to earlier, we have our bids on a van. We have 2 vans right now. They've been quite used, I would imagine. I don't see them in the parking lot all that often, which is a good thing. And anything you want to talk about this, Michelle or Amanda?
I will just let you know that our old van will make it 1 more year for us, and then we will be retiring.
Okay.
So, and we really have come to find that the vans have been used a lot, and during the school day, a lot. So I think, originally, we thought if we had 2 vans, we could get a small sports team to and from places if Butler's Bus was unable to provide transportation. Now I'm seeing that not only do I need that for sports teams, but also something might be happening during the day.
Because I've noticed there's a lot of, like, an art class might take 10 kids on a field trip.
Yes.
And like, that's the type of thing that's for, not a giant bus from Butler's where we're spending $500 on a driver and all the mud and gas and all that sort of thing. This is just the cost of the gas for us to drive down there, so.
That's correct.
Cool. All right, so in your packet, you have the recommendation, sorry, I have to pull this back open because I was jumping around on my agenda. But I'll entertain a motion if someone would like to make one on Grapponi, I guess.
So I'll make a motion to approve the bid from Grapponi Ford for $60,052 for a 2025 Ford Transit van.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Discussion on this. So as Amanda said, they've been heavily used. This will be ultimately to replace the 3rd van, which is on its last legs.
Yeah.
I thought you said it's going to make 1 more trip, honestly.
Oh, 1 more year. We
One more
thought
year,
maybe
okay.
she was all done this year, but she's gonna give us 1 more
All right,
year.
however much that one can give, at least we'll have this 3rd one on order, hopefully, because we saw how long it will take, and I don't know what the price will be after
I don't know.
this week, so.
Yeah.
Any discussion on
And
this?
this will lock us in price.
Yes,
Right.
that
That's the reason for doing it now, correct?
will lock us in on price.
Right.
Good. All right, all those in favor of awarding the bid to Grapponi Ford in the amount of $60,052 for the transit van, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. All right, next up on our agenda, we got some policy fun.
Donations? No?
That donation.
Oh, sorry, I don't have the second sheet of the agenda. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
The letter in the packet.
Yes.
You don't have it.
Oh, there it is, okay. All right, so we just have to approve the donation. Oh, no, she just made a photocopy of the agenda, and not the second page.
Here you go, Sam, I found the
thanks.
real photocopies.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you did?
Yep.
Oh, good.
They were buried.
All right, so entertain a motion to accept a donation of $10,000 in support of the MVRHS Sports Enhancement Program.
So
Also,
moved.
also known as the mental health coach.
Mental health coach.
Yeah.
And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, discussion on this. And we up the amount of what we have to accept a gift for, right?
So this money isn't going for a salary, correct?
It's going for the services of the mental health coach. So
It
it's not a
is.
salary like employee.
But it's financial compensation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had upped our gift donation, the hearing amount.
Yes.
So we don't have to have a public hearing for this.
Correct.
Because this is the first large one that we've had come since we've upped that amount, so I just want to make that known. All right. Cool, well, that's very nice of them. I'm very glad that they are stepping up for Coach Joe, and reports of Coach Joe, I take it are still going well. And
Very well. Coaches are relying on him.
that's good.
heavily.
Good.
Thank you to the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation for
Yeah.
the generous gift.
Yeah, big thanks to them.
Amazing.
So, all right, all those in favor of accepting the gift of $10,000 from the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation for the mental health coach, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. All right, cool. Next on our agenda, we have some policies. So I'll just read through here for second reading and adoption. So I'm gonna make a motion that we have approved for second reading and adoption, policy JRA, student records and access, policy JFABB, foreign exchange students, policy JFABB-R1, policy foreign exchange students, admission of foreign exchange students, policy JJB, end of year class events and trips, policy JLD, school guidance and counseling program, policy JLIE, student automobile use, policy JLIE-R, student automobile use procedures, policy JLIE-F, student automobile use permit application, policy JLIF, student parking, policy JN, student volunteers and student employees, and those are all second reading and adoption. Do you have a second?
A second.
All right, so we'll just go through these. Policy JRA. So we did not make any changes between last meeting and this meeting.
Correct.
Correct. So this is a lot of your FERPA, your privacy stuff, things like that. Any questions, comments on those? All
Well,
right.
you seem pretty standard when it comes to access timing.
Yeah.
So, from what I can read.
Yep. All right. And then the next one's foreign exchange students. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that? As you can see, this is, we're reviewing policies that are over 30 years old, just making sure that they're current, making sure they're applicable, taking out references to beepers and things like that. Right. And then the admission guidance, the JE, what is it? Sorry, JFABB-R, the admission guidance. So that's just kind of talking about giving them some more outlines. Anything on that? All right, policy JJB, year and end of year class trips. Anything on that?
It doesn't say end of year.
Oh, yes, because we took it out, because it was originally end of year class trips and events was the name of the policy, and we took out, that is one change that we took, is that it's official, the old policy is called end of year class events, and then we just took it, changed it to say class events and trips, like class trips. Is that correct?
Correct, you're right.
Okay, so the title
We'll change.
omitted end of the year, but it does address it in the body.
Yes.
Okay, that's the way we wanted it, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right, Kathleen, that needs to come out.
Right.
The
so
end of the
year-end.
year needs
Yeah.
to be stricken from the body.
Yeah, because we wanted to say that
Yeah.
any kind of student body in class events, like if you were having a class trip, even if it's in the middle of the year, like the senior
All
class.
inclusive trips.
Yeah, we want to make sure it's an
Yeah.
all-inclusive trip, yeah.
Okay, so we gotta fix it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we'll
just
get
strike
that.
out year end
You're right.
in the second line. And I don't think there were anything else about year end.
That's all I saw.
Good catch, thank you. All right, so we'll strike that, that'll be that.
But it's wrong on the agenda too.
Yeah, and
Just
it'll
cross
change
that
with
out.
Martha. Okay, all right, school guidance and counseling program. Any comments on that one?
The only question I had for this is that we are calling school counselors no longer has guidance in their terminology, and I know that in my own work with counselors is that they really don't like that word.
They don't like the word guidance?
They do not like the word guidance. They are counselors,
Yep.
so, and that's what their title and their license says. So I'm just wondering if we want to consider that when it comes to this.
Yep, Mr. Phillips mentioned that to me,
Yeah.
that they're school counselors, not
Yeah.
drop the guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has that been in effect?
It's kind of come into play in the last probably 9, maybe 8 years.
Really?
So, yeah.
Have you heard from our counselors?
I have not had one opinion either way. This is modeled after the school board associations with the most updated version from 2017.
About 9 or so.
Yeah. It is probably one of those that will get re-upped this spring.
You know what, as I read it,
We had something come across
yeah,
about dropping guidance, that they want to be referred to as school counselors.
and if you look at this actual policy, it only talks about a school guidance program, but then when it refers to counselors, it doesn't say guidance counselors, it says school counselors. So it does
Down
call
below,
them,
yeah.
yeah, down below, so it refers to school counselors, and the guidance is only at the guidance program, which I understand. I mean, I would be happy to revisit this later and come up with, you know,
I
something.
mean, I do think it is only in the title portion.
It's down on the
down
one.
in
No, it's
Third
next to last
Third
paragraph.
line in the
Oh,
second
yeah,
paragraph.
there, yep, you're right, the
So we
guidance
can
counselors.
change that.
Change
How
that
about
to
we
school.
change guides to school counselors?
Yep.
Let's table it.
Yeah, we can table that.
Table this.
All right, we'll table that one. So I pull that out of my motion.
Okay. Did I second?
Yeah, whoever
Did that?
seconded it.
Yeah. I think
All right, yeah.
So what would you like me to find out about that? Like, what, table it so that, what more information do you need?
The proper nomenclature for how the counselors want to be
How that,
represented within the policy. Does that sound right?
yeah, like how that department wants to be.
So the title, a change of the title, or a change just to school counselors?
Whoa, we're gonna change, in the second to last paragraph, we're gonna change the guidance counselors. That one, we're gonna change to school counselors.
Yep.
But then as far as it's school guidance and counseling program, what else do they call it? Is it school counseling program?
Okay, so
You know what I'm
it's in the
saying?
title.
Counseling.
Yeah, like,
The title.
because it says to ensure, you know, this board is committed to ensuring a high-quality school guidance program. So I wonder if, like, what is the correct nomenclature for that? Like, is that updated with, you know, a school counseling program or school? I get it, because like guidance is like you do with guidance, but I get that there's probably better terminology for it now.
Yep, I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
I'm aware of
Take
what
a look
you
at
want changed.
Is that right,
Check.
everybody?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll table that one. All right, next one is student automobile use. Did you have any further comments from Tina on any of these?
Nope.
Okay. Privilege, not a right. And so now that these are all freshly on people's minds, the only thing that I was going to ask is that on, oh wait, never mind, it's on the next one. So, everyone good on JLIE?
Yep.
All right, JLIE-R. The only thing I was going to ask is on number 4, we asked that they enforce that a little better.
I did already make
All right.
that request to
Good
Tina.
deal.
I think you will see it go out in the newsletter.
All right. And then the other one that I'm finding is number 5 here. Students may not move their vehicle from the student parking lot to park at any other parking area after 4 p.m., which is fine. However, I find that they all move right here. And so when we have public events here at the school, it's taken up by 15 student athlete cars
Yeah.
because they couldn't park over there. So I would like to ask if they did not refrain from parking in the immediate spots and instead like they can park, because they can still walk into the gym from there.
Yeah.
Like they can open the other side door and come in that way, right?
Yeah, I will make that request. I will say.
I don't want someone out there like having to like check it off, but
Yeah, no, I will say that I am concerned, and unfortunately, I'm going to bring Lily into this. I did watch Lily walk in the dark all the way down to her car one day, so I don't want to eliminate.
right,
To me, that's a safety concern.
Yeah.
I know Lily's tough and she's going to take care of herself,
right.
and it's a well-lit parking lot, but I am concerned. I really don't want a lot of kids walking alone at 8 or 9 o'clock after a late night practice down to that lower lot. So
Yeah, no,
really-
and yeah, I don't want them in the lower lot either.
I would like them to be able to move up here. But
Yeah.
if the board wants to make sure on board nights or wherever it is that there's adequate parking.
How about
up
just the
here.
visitor spaces that
Yeah,
are marked
the front.
visitor?
Perfect.
How about they may not park in the visitor, because there
I
are
love that.
7 spaces there, so
Yep.
if there is a public meeting or something like that, at least that's
Absolutely.
open.
Yep, I think that's good.
So-
I do.
Should I put that, can we add that to number
Students will
5?
not park
Students
in
may
the
not park
visiting
in
spots.
posted visitor spots.
Yep, perfect.
Students may not park in posted visitor spots. So that is my recommendation to add. People like that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. Anything else on this one? something very specific. Students shall not do this, will do this, that's right. All right, next one is the permit application. I don't think there's anything on there, really.
Are
We
they
don't-
doing these online?
I do believe they are online in Google form.
Because there's a lot of information on here that should be encrypted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They do a Google form.
Okay,
goes out
so
for
they're-
all months,
they've got
so it's
it.
all really
Okay.
super
it's all
secure.
locked down, yeah, big deal. We don't have to deal with this now, but it just kind of occurred to me, we don't have to require, yeah, we can't require them to have insurance.
No.
I was like, where are you gonna put their insurance information? Oh, yeah. All right, anything on that one? Then the last one, student parking, just talking about parking, blah, 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 blah. Any questions on that one? All right, and then student volunteers and student employees. This has student workers, spells out the specific things, and then student volunteers. Yep. All right. Anything else on that one? All right, ready to call for a vote? All right, and call for a vote. All those in favor of approving and second reading and adoption of policy JRA, JFABB, JECB, JFABB, I'm sorry, strike JECB, yeah, not that one. JFABB, JFABB-R1, JJB, and we tabled JLD, then JLIE, JLIE-R, JLIE-F, JLIF, and JN. For second reading and adoption, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Now I make a motion that we rescind policy JECB, International Student Exchange Policy. Policy JECB-F, model form for foreign students. Do you have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion on those? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All right. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the first reading, policy KEE, website accessibility and grievance. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right. So do we have this policy? Yes, we already have this policy. Wait.
Yep, and we brought this to,
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah.
We gave this to Craig to review.
That's right.
Then the communications committee, we
Yes.
reviewed it on 4/1. So the communications committee has been through this. Craig has been through this, given their suggestions, and here you see it.
He's happy with,
If I remember from the committee, he was gonna add that into this draft, right, from his email prior, is that correct?
No, that's a different one, so
Okay.
that sounds like.
maybe, I don't know, there were a lot
Okay,
of
there was a
those.
lot of them that night.
We've got to stick with Craig at one point.
Yep. All right. Okay, any further comment on this one? All right. All those in favor of first reading for policy KEE signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so now we have some things to review here. Are you just asking us to just take a look at these?
So in our travel through our policies manual, right, this kind of, we'll have some first readings for the May 13th. And after that, we will have cleaned up every policy from the 90s. Everything will mostly be up to date.
How long of a journey has this been?
I can't remember. It's been so long, Joe.
Well, when did you start being a superintendent?
Yeah. Yes, I think you're probably right. It's probably been a 7-year journey.
Yeah.
So this will get us pretty cleaned up. So I've gone through them section by section, and this is section H, and it's titled Negotiations. And you will see that it's section H. You're being asked to look at HA, HB, HC, and HCA. So those are the 4 policies that we currently have in the section H negotiations. None of those policies are sample policies from the School Board Association.
Yep.
So it's really up to you all whether you would like to keep them. You don't really, we can mark them as reviewed, and that will bring them into this,
Review compliance.
from 95,
Yeah.
Yep, so they are from 95. There is one that I do want to check on, the open shop policy. I want Peter to review that, our
Yeah.
legal counsel, so I'll have Peter Phillips read that one. But I don't think there's any harm in keeping the negotiation goals, the
Yeah.
negotiation legal status, the scope of negotiations. I don't think there's any harm in those, and keeping those there, and we can just mark those that they were reviewed in 2025.
They're very strictly tied to the RSA as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice. Yeah, the H, A, B, and C, I don't really have. I'm glad we reviewed them. But yeah, if you look at these and you think of something later, like, hey, maybe that should be it. Sure. But if they've been working for us, okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them. But yeah, I would like to find out from Peter on the HCA.
Yeah.
Because I don't love that, so I don't know.
Well, I wonder if it's neutralized by Janice.
Yeah, and that
That's
might
what I think it's just so
Yeah.
old.
and then that might be something we just resend because it's neutralized. Yeah.
So we'll leave that one off the review mark, and I'll just check with Peter. So the next two, HP and HPA, are the only two School Board Association policies in Section H. So it's up to you whether you would like to add those or not.
I'm happy to think about them and then,
We can bring them back to the next.
yeah, we can bring them back to the next meeting.
We can bring them back to the next.
People.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah. No, HP and HPA.
all right, cool. Agenda items for next meeting, so we have a few policies, we'll have, Lily, I meant to get this on this week's meeting, but last year, the school board we wanted to start a new little tradition with the senior class, where if the senior class, we will match up to 3 lilac bushes that the senior class will give as a gift. And so we did this last year, they bought 2, we bought 2. I'll have a formalized proposal for you to bring to your senior class. But it's a way that you guys can give back. And like when we did the renovation, we didn't put any money in for landscaping and things like that, because we thought we'd be able to do things like this. So that way, but yeah, we'll talk about it at the next board meeting, but I would like to continue that, and if the board would like to as well, we would like to do that. So just a heads up for you on that. And anything else? So we have quarterly reports. We'll set our school board retreat date. Are the auditors coming? For real?
Double check with him, but I did ask him, I don't remember if he confirmed.
All right.
He did say he would come if necessary. He said he normally only comes when there's findings, like to explain, but if we want him to come.
Yeah,
Special ed.
if he wants to do it over Zoom too.
General financial audit.
Yeah.
I will just caution you that you have quarterly reports, so
Yeah,
that's gonna be a long meeting anyway, but if you want, we can also have him come at a different time.
Yeah, that's fine.
He didn't
I mean,
sound
people
too thrilled.
feel like we need
I
an
mean,
audit
like,
presentation.
there's nothing really
or
to
an
talk
audit,
about.
general
It was
financial.
kind
The
of
next meeting,
Or at the next meeting later this spring.
later.
Yeah, later this spring or something like that might be
Okay.
good. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I'll find out.
Yeah, because we'll have a lot of year-end stuff.
We have a lot coming
Ooh,
up.
that's right.
We have hefty agendas.
That's right.
I
All
know
right.
you all love spending time with me, but
We do, but, all right. Public comment. Mr. Kiley.
It's too late, I'll let it pass.
thanks, Dan.
Did
Thank
they
you
get
for your
home
patience.
okay?
Well, I came because I thought he was going to be talking about what was happening in legislature.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you get their
Yeah, you
legislative
love
updates?
us.
Do you get their legislative updates from School Board Association?
Yeah, I'd like to see one.
Okay, I can forward it
Obviously,
to you.
I'd like to see it after they pass the stuff. But
Yeah.
Because if they pass school choice, then we've got to come up with a number,
Yeah,
which is how many vacancies do we have?
yeah, that's a good
Or how
point.
many vacancies do we say we want to have?
That's a good, yeah, how many
Someplace
vacancies?
around 140,
That's a good way to
back
put
to
it.
where we were 10 years ago?
Putting that in public comment. They didn't ask to have any anticipated legal updates forwarded to him.
Well, I get it from the
Oh, if you
legislator
forget,
tomorrow
never
explain
mind.
it.
All right,
I'll get it from Dave Pratt tomorrow explain it.
Perfect.
so we do have personnel resignations and nominations here on your green sheets. So I'll entertain a motion to approve resignations and retirements and nominations
As presented.
as presented, yes.
So moved.
All right, we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion on these? So this is the resignations, retirements on this sheet, and then this is the support staff nominations on the separate sheet because there's so many to fit on the other sheet. All right,
new contracts go out for, support staff?
They will go out following this.
Okay.
Are these renewals?
Correct.
Right.
Cool. Any further questions? All right, all those in favor of approving the resignations and nominations and retirements as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions. All right, and we have non-public, yes?
Yes, for the purposes of hiring and tuition waiver.
And tuition waiver. All right, I'll make a motion that we go into non-public for hiring and tuition waiver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Kathleen seconds. All right, Joe. Dan, just say
Yes.
yes or no.
Yes.
Because this is to go into non-public. Tim, yes. Kathleen?